Hey, Jeff Justice here with Jeff Justice Seminars for Court Reporters. I want to thank you so much for deciding to choose us to get your online CEUs with. We promise not to disappoint you. We provide laugh-packed, content-rich seminars so that you can get your CEUs from the comfort of your own home or office. So basically, you're going to watch the videos as you do, print out the PDFs for the quizzes, answer the questions as you go along. At the end of the whole seminar, so if you're taking a 10-hour seminar after you finish all the sections, email me all of your answers. I will grade them and get you back your letter of completion for your state, and if you're an RPR, the proper forms for NCRA. So get ready to laugh and learn with Jeff Justice Seminars for Court Reporters. So without any further ado, a nice round of applause for Anita Johnston.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there anyone here who has ever been to one of my seminars before? Okay, great.
Well, I don't heard of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you
Oh.
spoke here before, right?
Yeah, you were here the last year.
Yeah.
Was it?
Last 2 years, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember? Remember us?
I really meant my workshops, my hands-on workshops, because I've done hands-on workshops about 10 to 12 times a year for the past 22 years. I thought that project would last about a year or two. At the end of 2 years, everybody would know real time, and we would all move on. That didn't happen. And for many people, they say, well, they don't ask for real time where I am, and many people are not interested in real time. And we're not going to talk a lot about real time. The only reason I wanted to get a sense of where you are or what your interest is that real time slashes editing time 50 to 75%. Even though you might not do real time, does anybody like shortcuts? Anybody would like to be able to write things a little bit easier than you have in the past? So is it all right with you if I sprinkle in a little bit of that type of thing throughout the English seminar? Because we have a very extensive handout, has a lot of information in it. We're going to cover a lot of this verbally, and if we don't get to everything, that's okay. I've given this seminar before. I've never completed the workbook as far as going over every single page. You will get all the information. You can certainly review on your own time. But I find that some people like to hear the odd funny story or two, or difficult situations. So if you have an interest in that, like how to handle difficult people, attorneys who are very uncooperative, judges who are a bit of a challenge, is it okay that we talk about some of those things? And what do you do when? I have a very strong passion in achieving my goal every day, which has evolved through the years, and I'll tell you what that goal is. My goal in life is to have a happy day. Now that might sound goofy to you. There's a lot written on happiness, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, let's take our handout out, our English Grammar, Ethics, and Humor, and let's go to the first page, which is page 1. And you will notice here, grab my glasses, that we're going to start with basic grammar. I've offered you a few references. These are books that I personally highly recommend. They're excellent. And if you have an interest in following up with some of the things we talk about, you like to look up certain things, it's wonderful to have a source that is well respected in the court reporting world. So you've got some great references there. Bad Grammar, Good Punctuation by Margie Wakeman-Wells. And as you probably know, Margie is our guru, national court reporter expert in English grammar, spelling, punctuation, and all of the other related factors that we use in preparing transcripts. It was, when I went to school, Lillian Morrison. Anybody remember Lillian? Yeah, wonderful lady who retired. Also the Gregg Reference Manual and the Chicago Manual of Style are two excellent reference books. We're pretty familiar with those. Word trippers, I will talk about this later. I just think it's a fabulous book for court reporters. Word Trippers explains which is the right word to use. It's got an alphabetical list of pesky little words and what each word means. So there's a definition involved, and we'll get to this later. And another book that's excellent is brand new, just hot off the press from, I think, earlier this year. It's by Anita, who is a fantastic captioner, and she does captioning training. And if anybody's interested in learning more about CART or captioning, I have two people to recommend. One would be Anita and the other is Jennifer Bonfilio. They're two great people who have programs that teach, captioning and CART. And this little book is a book on defining sounds. You might like this book because you're a captioner. And so putting in different separate definitions for sounds as opposed to only words is an interesting concept. It helps on building word roots and things like that. Okay, so let's, I want to make a few requests. Number one, that you be willing to be open-minded, try new things. Are you up for that? Yeah? Okay. And that you be a little creative, and that you ask questions. We love your questions. Let's make this time together valuable for you. If you have a question, ask. So often I'll go to a seminar and I'll have a question. I'll think, gee, I wonder if, I'm going to look so stupid if I ask that question. First of all, you're not going to look stupid because nobody cares. All right. And I don't mean to be mean, but the truth is if you ask a question, you'll get an answer. And I will guarantee you, when you ask a question, other people have the same question. Don't you sit in a seminar sometimes and somebody asks a question and you, I was wondering that too. You know, something like that. So please make this day work for you. Get as much information as you can that's going to serve you well. Okay? That's the first request that I make as far as questions. Also, I'm going to request that there's no side talking. And it tends to disturb people around you. Also, if you're texting and you're on your iPad, cell phone, or whatever peripheral you might be using, it gets very distracting. You are absolutely 100% welcome to step outside. If you have your phone on vibrate or silent and you see it ringing and it's an important call, I absolutely respect you. I know you have things going on in your life and you're free to step out anytime. But please take the calls outside. I've had people where the phone would ring. Hello? Oh, hi Sally, how you doing? You know, it's been a while since I've seen you. Oh, I have to talk soft, I'm in a seminar. Well, I will tell you that not only do you disturb people around you, but I get distracted. And I'm not ashamed of it because I've earned the right to get distracted. I'm getting older, and that's what happens to people when their brains get a little bit older. They get distracted easily. So I own it, and that's just plain old me. And if I forget my place, sometimes I'm talking, I'm telling about a certain topic, and right in the middle, then I lose my place. Like right now, what was I talking about? Would you read that back? So anyway, it would be highly respectful and acceptable to view whatever you need to view and take care of any kind of business outside. It's perfect. And of course, if you want to use the facilities, the restrooms, they're right down the hall. Chances are you saw them on your way here. And so it's very close. And I just want you to be very comfortable, okay? All right. So why do we need to learn grammar if we simply prepare a transcript of the words we hear? What does that have to do with grammar? We bring our intelligence to the transcript preparation, which includes parts of speech, spelling, punctuation, and when you see the handout today, you're going to see some interesting things. I'll give you one example. What did you order in the restaurant? Answer. I ordered chili and sea bass. And people do not articulate and speak slowly. So, well, what did you order in the restaurant? Answer. Oh, I ordered chili and sea bass. Was that C-H-I-L-I space A-N-D space sea bass? Or was that C-H-I-L-E-A-N, one word, sea bass? Chances are you're familiar with Chilean sea bass, the second one that I mentioned. If you're not, you are not at all stupid, you just have never seen it before, that's all. And those types of mistakes in a transcript could be highly embarrassing. So that's why this type of work is very, very important. One more example. So tell me, Mrs. Adamski, did you wear the green dress, or did you wear the dress your husband gave you for your birthday? Answer. Well, actually, counsel, they're really one the same. So was the answer they were one in the same, or was the answer they were one and the same? Not everyone is 100% positive what the answer to that is. This is what I mean when we need to hone our English grammar, etc., and make sure that we are sharp and up on basic phrases. Chances are the witness did not even pronounce it. They just sort of slurred through it. Do you ever get them? Maybe in Texas they pronounce things clearly. Okay. All right, so that's just a little example. Without sound grammar and spelling rules, selecting the correct word, sound proofreading, and proper punctuation, some transcript preparation is left to the mechanical, non-intelligent output. Correct transcripts make us shine as court reporters. I don't need to dwell on that. I think we're all pretty familiar with that. So on page 1, grammar is our first category. We're just going to do a very basic review of grammar. I'm not going to give you hours and hours on this. Okay, my goodness, we learned it all in 5th grade, didn't we? And then on up. Okay, so a verb represents an action or state of being. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. A preposition is a word to show relationship to a noun or pronoun. A person once said anything a rabbit can do to a mountain is a preposition. You can go under, over, to the side, etc. An interjection is an abrupt remark or explanation. I find that very interesting. And the reason is, in court reporting school, weren't we all taught you do not use an exclamation point? Yeah? Mm-hmm. How many of you use an exclamation point? My friend, Reggie. Okay, Reggie, you and I are the only two on the planet. But I think that's pretty cruel. What is wrong with an exclamation point? Because when you think about it, it is one of our pieces of punctuation. I don't know, how would you feel if you were an exclamation point and your friends were the comma and the period and the quotes and the single quote and the dashes, and you're all by yourself over there, and all the rest of the punctuation is there? I don't think it's nice. Why should we be against an exclamation point? I actually had a little talk with Lillian on this, Lillian Morrison, and we discussed it. And I understood her perspective. She said, we should not be cluttering up a transcript. I agree. If we were allowed to use exclamation points, what do you think a divorce case might look like? Especially in a depo or a hearing. So we kind of came to a mutual agreement. And we said, what if we give all court reporters 4 exclamation points a year? You use them sparingly. I think they add a little flavor. I remember I had an arson case, because I was in court for 17 years. And the lady came running out of her building on the 2nd floor yelling, fire, fire! Well, I put exclamation point, fire, exclamation point, fire, exclamation point. I did not go to exclamation point jail. Nobody said a word. And let me tell you what really happens. Nothing. It's invisible. If I had a projector and I could show you a short video, you would know what I mean when I tell you it's invisible. And we've all heard eyewitness accounts of something that happened, haven't we? Have we ever heard 2 different versions of a story, 3 different versions? No, it was the green car. It was the white car. People see what they think they see, their perceptions are what they think is the truth, and as we know, just in life in general, perceptions change, and perception is reality to the person who possesses it at that moment. It doesn't mean that it's totally the truth. And I'm telling you, a lot of these pieces of punctuation are invisible in a transcript. Oh, but have you ever discussed a comma with a court reporter? That's an interesting discussion. Might go on for a half hour. I got one more question. Who cares? Now, I'm being a little bit silly, but obviously I must care if I'm teaching a whole English program here. I love the English language. And I love proper spelling and grammar, which is a dying art today. Now they don't teach children handwriting in school. When my granddaughter was in 3rd grade, I believe it was 4 years ago, she was taught that 50% of the classes had cursive writing and 50% of the classes did not have cursive writing. Interesting. She was in the class that did have it, thank goodness, because I would have gone to the school even though it was 300 miles away, and I would have had a little tantrum. No. But on page 2, we are continuing with the basic parts of speech. Pronoun, a word that takes the place of a noun, him, her, we, us, etc. An adverb is a word that modifies a verb or an adjective or another adverb and an adjective. So our next little group of words on page 2 asks a fill-in. So rather than just filling it in on your own alone, I'm going to ask you to just shout out the answer. Okay. So number 1, what do you think that would be? A noun, which is a person, place, thing, or object. That's right. And number 2 would be a pronoun. Yes, a pronoun, a word that takes the place of a noun. And on number 3, it is a adjective. Yes, a word that modifies a noun or pronoun. And number 4, a verb. Sure, a word that expresses an action, a condition, or a state of being. And our state of being would be am, are, was, were, been, etc. Okay? And number 5, a word that modifies a verb, adjective, or another adverb would be an adverb. That's exactly right. And then number 6, a word that connects or joins a sentence. Conjunction, yes. And number 7, a function word that shows relationship.
Preposition.
Yes, the rabbit to the mountain, a preposition. It shows a relationship, a physical relationship to the object. Okay, and number 8, a word showing an exclamation or emotion. Wow! Help! Fire! Wow! We got wow twice. That's how important wow is. Okay. And gosh. Okay. So that would be an interjection. See, this isn't rocket science stuff. Very good. Okay. Let's see. Select the correct term from the following list. And here we have a list of 10 different functions. So what I'm going to ask you to do, let me just see how our room is divided. You know what, we're divided 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4. So just divide up into a group of 3. And you folks can be a group of 4. Okay? And just collaborate together. Okay? Just do a little review on your own together and look at the definition of those 10 different items, and you fill out the answers. Have one person from your group fill out the answers of 1 to 10 on page 3. Is that good? I don't know about you. I think it's a little more fun to do something with a person or two. And I don't want you to have to work too hard. All right. So go ahead and fill out the answers of 1 to 10, collaborating with your people in your row. Has anybody gone to war with somebody on your team? Where you think one answer is one thing and another person is sure it's a different answer. Okay. Let's just shout out the answer. And we'll just start with number 1. The answer of that particular quiz here on page 3 is, don't all shout at once. So let's give it a try. Number 1.
Clause.
I didn't hear that answer.
Clause.
Clause, exactly. Yes, clause. Okay. Number 2. Independent clause. And you're all clear about the differences on that. If not, make sure you raise your hand. Just make sure we know it. Number 3 is dependent clause. Yes. And number 4? Antecedent. Yes. Number 5? Subject. Yes, it's the subject. Number 6? Object. Right. Object. Number 7? A run-on sentence. We really want to be careful with that. So many people write with run-on sentences. And our competition is what? ER, DAR, etc. So it's very nice that we do such high-quality work. And we see other things in other formats. All right. Number 8 is fragment. Yes, a fragment. Number 9.
Active voice.
Active voice, yes. And number 10. Passive voice. Yes, that's right. Okay, are there any comments or questions about any of these? We're all good. And you'll notice at the bottom it says tip. How many words are ideal in a sentence? This is not from general court reporting information. This is from quality English and writing. Are you writing a book? Do you write a memo? Are you writing a letter to someone? We do writing just in our normal everyday lives. So this isn't about a transcript. However, you'll notice it says ideally 15 to 18 words per sentence. And less is even better. So if you can do a sentence 12 to 15 words, that's even better. The idea being shorter sentences are easier to understand. It's a quality format for quality writing. Okay? All right, let's go to our next page, which is page 4. Proofreading. Proofreading mistakes. Has anyone in here ever made an error while you were proofreading? I'm just playing with you. Okay. 7 proofreading tips for court reporters. So here are some ideas that could help you to be a quality, top-notch proofreader or work with your proofreaders. Some of you might be using proofreaders. It's always a great idea to have a second set of eyes on your work. However, if you have a scopist, that's a second set of eyes, and you could do the final proofing. Or if you do your own scoping, it's great to have a proofreader. And we started the day by talking about the odd situation where you might have an incorrect word that could be embarrassing if you have the wrong word and you didn't know the difference. So, number 1, Read from a printed paper when possible. In this day and age, we've got computers, we've got iPads, we've got iAnnotate, a great software program where a lot of court reporters proofread off of a tablet or something like that. It's just a different world today. However, it has been shown, tested, and proven through absolute studies that proofreading from a piece of paper is more accurate. So it's going to be your final decision if you choose to print everything out. In the olden days, it was never a choice. We always printed things out, but just as a fact. If you must read from a computer screen, know that statistics show that there are more mistakes that are not caught. Number 2, read from an iPad and iAnnotate app if possible. Yes, you can do that. However, I'm going to suggest that if you do proofread from a peripheral like that, that you proofread very slowly. Okay. Number 3, take appropriate breaks, even 5 minutes every hour or so, to rest your eyes, walk, stretch, etc. Coming back refreshed makes a world of difference. And when you are fresh in proofreading, you will catch more mistakes. Some of us tend to work ourselves to the ground, and we work very, very long and hard. And I'm telling you, our quality work is not at the end of a long, long session. Number 4, read out loud if possible. If you do read it out loud, you are automatically slowing it down. And number 5, read backwards to assist in catching more errors, especially spelling errors. So how many of you read backwards? Okay, when I teach this class, I find that there are very few people who do, but usually there are a couple. And what I mean by that is, let's just take number 5. We would read number 5, errors, spelling especially, errors, more, catching in, assist to backwards read. And believe it or not, your eye can catch more spelling errors. This is a proven technique. Number 6, I've already mentioned this, but have another set of eyes on your transcript whenever possible. Someone who is a strong, advanced English or grammar expert. Misspelled words could prove quite embarrassing. Of course, we do write what we hear. There's that fine line between putting it in the transcript as we heard it versus what is correct. And we're going to address that. Well, for example, for slang, we spell words correctly in transcripts, even when mispronounced. Like the word ask, I'm going to ask you a question. We're not going to write AX, and we're not going to write AKS. We're going to write ASK when someone mispronounces a word like that. But what do you do if Mr. Greenberg is the major focus person of the lawsuit? And an attorney says, after you saw Mr. Greenstein, what did you do? So you do what?
Put it the way they said it, and either sick or,
All right, so she'll say sick. She'll write Greenstein and then sick. What if they said that name Greenstein 5 or 6 times?
Put it Greenstein every time, sick it the first time.
Just sick it the first time, but not the times after that. Do you all agree with this?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yes, and I agree too. Okay, so, but that would be an example when we would write what we hear, even though it's an incorrect word. Because what happens if the afternoon session, if you keep fixing it, and the opposing attorney says on the record, you know, Mr. Gondeblatt, you've been pronouncing the person's name, Mr. Greenberg's name, you've been calling him Greenstein, and it should have been Greenberg. So if that shows up in the record, of course, then if you get caught, you'd go back and edit it. It happened to me once. I was in a trial. This was actually before real-time days, thank goodness. And I'm writing along, and this one attorney started every question like, okay, fine. Now, what did you do then? Okay, fine. Why did you do that? Okay, fine. What did you do next? Okay, fine. So what do you do? I don't know. I'll tell you what I did. And by the way, folks, we don't read these things in a book. Okay? We do the best we can. And that's it. What I chose to do is I started about 1 out of every 5 questions. Okay, fine. Period. And then blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to clutter the transcript, but yet I wanted to give the flavor that this little phrase was said all the time. At the end of the day, the judge turned to that attorney and he said, "Counsel, are you aware that you started 104 questions with okay, fine?" So what do? Number 1, you look cool. Have we all practiced looking cool? So you don't blink, you just don't bat an eyelash. Oh, you do a little gulp, okay? And then I put in my paper notes, make sure I put in 104 okay fines. Then I write it on my calendar, my worksheet, make sure you put in 104 okay fines. And then I put it, in those days we had paper notes, so you young folks, you might not know what I mean by paper, but you know, we used to have the paper strips. Anyway, okay, so then I obviously edited whenever I would need to go to transcript, that I would make sure that I had that 104 okay fines. What should you do? What is the right thing to do? I'll answer, but before I answer, what about you? Do you have a thought? Somebody.
If they say it, I put it in.
If they say it, you put it in.
It's not our responsibility.
I see a lot of nods, yes. Anybody else have an idea? See, people didn't do what I did back in those days.
Well, if it's video, then I put everything.
Okay, if it's video, you
But
put
if it's not
everything.
video, I clean it up and
All right, if it's not
if
video,
it doesn't
she
take a
cleans
line
up.
away.
Pardon?
If it doesn't take a line away. But if it's not video.
When I hear court reporters talk
A
about
little.
spelling something out instead of abbreviating because it's more lines, more pages and all, chances are you might have 1 to 2 pages in a 30-year career.
No.
So, that's all right. That's all right. You might be 100% right, and I'm not saying you're wrong. But here's the bottom line. You can put every word in that is spoken, and for my opinion, I really don't care if it's videotaped or not. I report the exact same way. That's just what I do. I might be wrong. However, seeing a few things throughout my experiences, you are never wrong if you give a verbatim transcript. If somebody doesn't like seeing okay, fine at the beginning of every sentence, what are they going to do? Are they going to say to you, you know, you put okay, fine at the beginning of every sentence. So you're very observant. Congratulations.
I had a problem, and it was sort of, except it didn't get caught the same day like yours did, when they said, when your judge said, you said okay, fine 104 times. I had a defendant, and his name was Huffstetter. And it was Huffstetter. I'd already put it in my dictionary to start because I write real time. And the defense attorney kept calling Huffstetter. Well, I was writing it Huffstetter because I wanted it to translate correctly.
Okay.
And we had that whole hearing, and I did it correctly because I'm just thinking that's the guy not knowing how to pronounce the guy's name.
Right.
We had a hearing about 2 weeks later. The defendant was requesting a new attorney. He's like, Judge, man, he didn't even know how to say my name. He couldn't even say my name right. He doesn't even know my name. And I had already transcribed that hearing.
Oh my goodness. Did you
With
all
it
hear
correct.
that?
And so I'm verbatim now. I don't hear what they say.
Okay.
You know?
Just to recap for the video, the person's name was Huffstetter, and it was placed in the dictionary, probably a brief because it's real time. And the attorney, the person's attorney pronounced it, got a new word, is that one in your dictionary? They pronounced it Huffstetter, not Huffstetter. And what she did was she put it in correctly, Huffstetter, through the whole transcript. And she created the transcript. It went to preparation, and she filed it. And then a few weeks later, the person asked for a new attorney because the comment was, the attorney doesn't even know how to pronounce my name. And so that was interesting, and ever since she's been putting in exactly what she hears. So yes, there are things that can happen. Are you embarrassing the person who spoke? That's not your job. And it's also not your job to decide when you embarrass somebody and when you don't. I don't know about you, but I love that quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can hurt my feelings without my permission. So do you live by that? Or do you use that phrase? Oh, she hurts my feelings. Or, oh, she makes me so mad. Or, oh, she really embarrassed me. How much do we put on another person and we decide that those people do things to us? And if you live with that thought process, nobody can hurt your feelings without your permission. It's a very empowering way to go through life. Yeah, we do have choices. And maybe something could be hurtful, but you don't have to feel hurt. I don't know, it reminds me of children who get bullied. We know that bullying today is a very, very serious problem. And I thought about this. Why can't we do something about bullying, nip it in the bud, and handle it ourselves? Do we have to shrink into a shrinking violet and be all mopey and feel horrible when somebody says or does something mean to us? What about children in the playground, little 5-year-olds? And what if little Johnny says to little Billy, "You are stupid and your mother's ugly." Nah, 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 nah. So what does little Billy do? Oh my goodness. Let's put our cell phones, please, on. Quiet. Oh, usually it happens right after I make the announcement. So, there's little Billy running home to Mommy in tears. "Mommy, little Johnny said I was stupid and that you're ugly." "Well, honey, you are stupid." No, I'm kidding. Mama doesn't say that. She hugs little Billy and tells him he's wonderful and smart. Don't you love it when they say, "Don't pay any attention to that"? Okay. All right, Mom. I didn't pay any attention. I mean, you know, it's like it was said. What if we were to teach children from teeny to handle things that come along? That there are people, what if little Billy, I know, I made this up and it's a little corny, okay? But what if little Billy were to say to little Johnny, after Johnny says mean things to Billy, he says, "Gee, Johnny, I'm sorry you're not feeling well today. I think you must be having a bad day, and obviously you're not getting very much love and support at home. So that's why you are acting." I told you it was goofy. But what if we were to say something, whatever it is he says, the idea being that I hope that you will feel better about your life and learn how to talk nice to children, instead of having a bad feeling inside that you think you need to be mean and cruel. Because it just shows what a stupid person you are. And really, I'll bet you're a great guy on the inside. And I hope you're going to feel better through life. I'm making up the words, but you get the idea. What if we empower children to handle whatever's going on and put the blame exactly where it belongs? On the person uttering the words, not on the kid that's being spoken to. So throughout our lives, as we're told things, you better be careful of him. He's a backstabber. Watch your back. You know, does that make him a backstabber? Or does that make me the person who uses that kind of language? You don't have to go very far to see examples of this. Anybody ever seen Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or any of those housewife type shows? You see more? Yeah, we have a big raving fan here, Reggie. But seriously, the things that people say about other people, I like to just say, you know, You're holding a mirror up, and whenever you use bad language or bad words about other people, you're really talking to yourself. So why do you say those things to yourself in the mirror? And it's just a silly comment that I make, but that's the general idea. And if we could empower children at an early age to not be embarrassed, of course there are other factors. We're not going to go off on this tangent, but the other factors being social media today and having serious consequences for things that people do post publicly and everything else. I mean, that's a 10-hour discussion, and we're not going to go there. So I realize that a lot of things have changed since the time I was young, but anyway. So, why did I talk about that? I have no idea. It just popped out, but I already told you I'm going to tell you little stories as we go along. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So, often the question is asked, do we clean up? And some people do clean up. Some people will say, I clean up the judge. Should you never clean up the judge? I don't know. Do you want to work there? It's got to be a personal judgment call. And I'm telling you that when you report the exact words that are spoken, you cannot be faulted, especially with attorneys, because attorneys can see what they look like in print. I remember one attorney mentoring a brand new attorney, and the brand new attorney was not speaking clearly for the record. And the mentor had talked to the court reporter and said, make sure you include every false start and every word that this new attorney uses, so that the attorney could see it in print. And sometimes that acts as a good teaching agent. But you cannot be faulted for a verbatim transcript. If somebody says, you know, that transcript was all cluttered with all those little false starts, and really, that's not the way to do a transcript. What could be an effective answer to something like that? Anybody have an idea? How about some, oh, yes.
That's how they spoke, that's what they said.
It's verbatim.
So it's verbatim.
Okay, it's verbatim. Absolutely. And another thing that I've said is, counsel, I am an impartial officer of the court. I take down what is said. And being impartial, if this happened to your opponent, I would be just as impartial to that person. So I really report with blinders on. And I report the words I hear. Something like that.
Well, if you clean up one, it makes everyone wonder, what else did you clean up?
Exactly, good point. If you clean up one person, it makes you wonder, what else did you clean up? Or what did you edit? Or what did you bring into this party that's not part of that verbatim record? Very good point, yes.
And also, if your audio record is requested, actually subpoenaed, which happened to me once, if you have not written verbatim, they've got the audio.
Okay, great point. The audio backup, if that's ever subpoenaed, which happened to her once, they have the audio backup. And then if your record does not comport to what the audio reflects, that would reflect on you. And what do you do if somebody wants your audio backup? We're on a different topic, but you brought out a great topic. So what do we do if somebody wants our audio backup? What do we say, or what do we do?
Write me a check.
Say that again.
Write me a check.
I love it. Reggie's my man. He said, write a check. All right. That's a great answer. I like that answer. What else? Anybody else have an answer?
I'm just sorry, I said that's my work product.
That's
You needed to have something.
You say it's my work product, you need to have a subpoena.
They usually back off if you say it's my work product, it's not for you.
They usually back off if you say it's my work product and it's not for you.
You say what audio?
You say what audio? There you go.
If you charge them, they'll back off too.
If you charge enough, it's amazing how you've got an audio. Okay, these are great answers, folks, and it is absolutely 100% correct to say it is your work product. This is strictly just for you. And yes, if they really want it, they must get a subpoena. So here's the official ethics ruling from NCRA. The NCRA legal department says If you have audio backup and you prepare a transcript, and they call you a few days later and say, I would like to get a copy of your audio, would you be allowed to say something to the effect of, oh, I'm really sorry, but I've already erased it, because I don't keep my audio backup. Of course, I hate the phrase, I'm sorry. Why do we ever say I'm sorry? Why am I sorry? I'm not sorry about anything, really. But it's a secondary type of a throwaway phrase. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, would you say that again? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry, would you just speak one at a time? Why are you sorry? I don't get it. They owe you an apology. You don't owe them an apology. Anyway, so what do you think about the idea of saying that you've already erased your audio backup?
If it's true.
If it's true.
If
you
it's
haven't, then
true.
don't say it.
Okay. If it's true, the audio's gone. Bye. What if it happens that day while you're there and they say, I'd like to get an audio backup?
No.
And you say, this is my work product. And the only way you could get it would be through a subpoena. And what if they were to say, okay, then I'll get a subpoena. And 2 days later you get an order for the audio backup. What about that scenario?
And a check.
And a check, absolutely. What do you think about that?
If they're willing to pay for it, why not sell it?
Yeah, I produce it if they want.
Okay, well, if they're willing to pay for it, that's actually secondary, and yes.
If they not in the transcript, but not if they order the audio to avoid getting a
Oh,
transcript.
absolutely. Only if they order a transcript and then they still want the audio, but they don't get the audio instead of a transcript. Absolutely. Of course, not from us. They do from other methods, but here's the official ruling. If on that day somebody's requesting an audio, you say it's your work product, they would need to get a subpoena. If there's an indication that they might get a subpoena, then it is your moral obligation to keep the audio for a reasonable time, let's say a couple of weeks, and then if you do get that subpoena, you provide the audio. Okay, and I'm not going to discuss the money because I don't know how it works in your state or your depot environment or your official environment, but sure, if you get paid for it, you get paid for it, which of course you should, and the amount, I'm not going to go there, but what I'm saying is just ethically, when you're on notice, you should retain the audio. If you are not on notice, what if you deleted it at the end of the night? You did the transcript and it's gone. You have no obligation to keep it. You didn't know that anybody wanted it. So that's really that little gray area. Okay?
We have no obligation to record.
Absolutely. We have no obligation to record. That's very true. I think in this day and age it's a great idea. Number one, recording is so easy, and we do have tremendous ability to keep storage and backup, etc. And number two, it isn't about the obligation to record. However, it's a pretty wonderful way to protect ourselves if we ever do get called in on a transcript. And we need to prove, I never said that. Don't you love the attorneys who said, I never said that? Well, counsel, it's in the transcript. Yes, you did. I did not. But people misspeak all the time. And, you know, I said, what did I say, produced it? I could say tomorrow, I never said produced it. I don't talk like that. I say produced. You know, I mean, we don't know what we do when we make the odd mistake. So anyway, but I hope that that's clear. And sometimes just being in an environment like this, we get to hear a little extra information. Yes?
Do you see odd mistakes like that? Do you put sick behind those mistakes?
Okay, do I put sick
a
behind
lot.
those mistakes?
We
What
do a
mistakes
lot,
specifically?
Like if they said they misspoke, but they misspoke so much in it, and you don't want them to think that it's your record that's faulty, right?
Okay, so do you put sick after every time somebody misspeaks, and you don't want them to think that it's your record that you're doing poorly? You want them to reflect that it's the person who spoke it. Folks, it's a judgment call. You do what you do. I'll tell you what I do. I told you how I used to clean up all the time, and I tend not to clean up anymore. However, if I know that they're misspeaking something and it's said once, sometimes almost on automatic pilot, I just put in the right answer. And I'll give you an example when I would put in something correct that they misspoke. What is your website? Oh, my website's www.anitapaul.com. Do you ever hear a website with 2 W's instead of 3 W's? I've heard that so often. And the thing is, the letter W is 3 syllables long. W, W, W. People don't articulate like that. They go fast. And I've even seen it on TV with people talking, www. blah, 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 blah. And I would put in 3 W's. And I wouldn't put in 2 W's, dot, etc. But that's just what I would do. I'm wrong. I'm a bad girl. Whatever.
Here's another one. Like, people would say 2001 instead of 2001. They'd say 201 or 201.
Yes, for 2001 they'll say
But I don't correct it.
201
I sick it.
or
Yeah, I sick it.
201. You sick it. How many of you put sick after 201 if you know they mean 2001? Let's see a show of hands.
Apostrophe O1.
Okay, I see about 1/4 of the hands. That means 3/4 of you don't put sick. What do you put?
2 apostrophe O1.
All right, so Reggie puts 2 apostrophe O1. How many of you do 2 apostrophe O1? Okay, I saw 2 hands go up. So there are more answers. What did the rest of you do?
I don't think I've
never heard it.
You've never heard it. Okay, so maybe if you do hear it, you just won't write it. They don't hear it.
Why do
Yes.
captioning, and if you fix what they say, and then you come back later and go, what was I saying earlier? And then you didn't put it that way earlier, then nothing
Okay,
makes sense.
you're a captioner.
So you have to put what they say. I enjoy it. I
So as a captioner, you love it when they misspeak. No, I'm just saying. But you put in what they say.
Right.
So do you put, would you put 2 apostrophe O1?
Now, they say 201 and you
If you say 201, you would write 201 or 201. Would you write it in words or would you write it in digits?
I would do digits.
You would write it in digits. Okay. How about you?
The same.
Same. So in the captioning world, you write exactly what is said. And then if they don't like it, they can see it.
Well, because like
They'll come
many
back.
times they'll do, like I do morning news and it's like 3 hours long and they'll get mixed up in their times. And if you know what time it is and you put it in there, then they go, 5 o'clock, it's only, 4 o'clock. Well, if you put it correctly to begin, then nothing makes sense. So if you just stop and let them keep chatting and don't do, or, you can't go back and fix it. It's already gone.
Right. Okay, so in captioning the morning news, when they say the wrong time sometimes if they get mixed up, you're still going to write exactly the words they say. You're not going to fix the time and make it correct like you know it, because it starts making everything a little more cattywampus. And of course, sometimes I watch the news and I'm always hearing things like, it's 10 minutes after the hour. So they'll use the phrase, the hour, so that whatever time zone you're in, you can figure out your own time, which is a good way to speak when you're doing the news. Yes?
This is kind of on point, but a little different question.
Sure.
I've heard this in other seminars. I actually started doing it myself. But if you have someone that's technically not saying something where you could sick it, in other words, but their sentence is so awkward that it looks like what they're forgetting an adverb or a verb, or they're leaving things out, which happens a lot, obviously,
Yes.
in our profession. I heard people say they use the word verbatim. Well, we take the whole transcript verbatim, but that's almost emphasizing, hey, this is what was said. I didn't write it this
Oh,
way. I didn't leave
interesting.
something out.
Okay, so when a sentence is convoluted and not correct, and they might have left a verb out, or they might have just really spoken totally nonsense or whatever it was, some people will put in a parenthetical verbatim.
Because then it shows them I didn't
It
leave
shows
something out.
the preparer of the transcript did not leave a word out. The person actually did that word. So that's a very nice parenthetical. How many of you have done that? You've used the parenthetical verbatim. Okay, I've only seen one hand, however, it's absolute good food for thought. You heard that at another seminar, so I'm not saying it's bad or wrong. I'm thinking, wow, this is why I love live workshops. My whole workshops are going to online learning, webinars, etc. And to miss this, in my opinion, is horrible. Because I love to see people make friends, they see people they haven't seen in years, they get ideas. We get an idea here, we get an idea there. This is so wonderful, so thank you very much for that contribution. And, you know, we get to hear what's going on with other people in other seminars, so that's definitely another thought process. Now, I've never done it, I've never thought about that. I think our general standard is sick. But if somebody feels like writing verbatim, see, this is what I love, and this is just my own opinion. And I will tell you that teachers in schools do not like me, and they tar and feather me when I talk about things online. And this would be one of them. I say use your common sense. Teachers say you cannot teach a student common sense because they don't know, they don't have enough foundation to have any common sense. Oh, let me think. Let's see. 36 years old, she's got a master's degree, she's headed a charitable foundation and is president of an organization and decided to go to court reporting school, but she has no common sense. Oh, folks, we're adults. We're bringing so much to the party. And I think it's fantastic to empower people. You know, and in my real-time workshops, do you have any idea how much time I spend on self-esteem, self-worth? Because court reporters generally have low self-esteem. They have fear of real time. Oh my goodness. I could tell you so many stories, I won't, but I'm just telling you, it's unbelievable what's going on. And I think that a lot of our teachers have instilled this fear, this level of perfection that is impossible to achieve. We are trained, you are the court reporter. You are responsible for the record. You must get every word. But teach, what if I don't hear? Doesn't matter. You get every word. But teach, if they talk on top of each other, you got to get every word. You know what? You don't got to get every word, and I'll tell you why. Because if all of our greatest court reporters in the world, including Ed Varallo, Dee Baino, Laura, what's her name? Come on. Laura Brewer. Do you know she's the #1 real-time reporter in the world? She won #1 at Intersteno against all the other competing countries. If all of these great people, Mark Kislingberry, etc., Mike Miller, or tap. Anyway, if all of these phenomenal court reporters drop, which they do every day, they do not get every word perfectly. Now, if they don't, you're okay. Am I advocating dropping? Of course not. I'm advocating excellence. I'm advocating you doing your very, very best. That's not perfect. One of my little sayings is, court reporters are excellent, not perfect. But try to tell a court reporter, I don't know about you folks sitting here right this minute, but some of you have this feeling you need to be perfect. And if you're not, you're in big trouble. That's why you discuss commas for 30 minutes. I would suggest discussing a comma for 2 minutes. Commas are important. I like commas. Appropriately and not overdone. But, you know, our whole perception gets askewed and it gets ridiculous. And I'll tell you why I'm so big on this. Because I can't stand how we're making ourselves sick today. I started off today talking about happiness. That we need to be happy at the end of the day. I know, I said I like to be happy. Well, you do too. And if you don't, well, I don't care. I still think you do. But here's the deal. I can't tell you how many times I would go home at the end of a day in tears. Very upset. My dear friend Chuck Motter, captioner and cart provider, told me a story. If I have time later, I'll tell you. You can make a note if you want to remind me. If we're getting boring or if we're getting whatever, and you want to say, Anita, would you tell us your Chuck Motter story? I'll be glad to do that. So if you want to make a note, I'll tell you the Chuck Motter story. But he went home at the end of the day in tears. And it was a very interesting situation that happened because I mentioned it in many of my classes. And being in a live class, one of the people, after telling the story 10 times, somebody came up with a whole new perspective that I had never thought of. And that's another reason why I love to share in groups when we're all together. That's why I hope Jeff will always give his live seminars. And I will always give mine twice a year in Vegas by live workshops. So you just have to go to Vegas, that's all. Darn. And I'll go with you if you want to know some good fun places to gamble. No, I didn't. Okay. But to have a happy day, I won't dwell on it. I will simply say very quickly that we are suffering from fibromyalgia, from TMJ, from ulcers, and cancer, everything. All of these illnesses that we have today, we must do everything and anything we can to keep ourselves healthy. Our health care is about us. It's not about the doctor you go to. And I'm sure you'll agree by now, it's been said for over 30 years, that our emotions have an awful lot to do with our health. And we cannot afford the luxury and the engagement of faulty thinking, or being upset, or getting angry. Well, it's just not an option anymore. People who have anger issues have health problems, and it just gets worse. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but it's just important to me. Okay, so I thank you for your wonderful contributions and ideas here on this. And do you clean up? As I said, it's a judgment call. I tend to not clean up 99% of the time. They will get what they heard, and captioners give you that 206 if it was 2006. They just write 206. They write exactly what they hear. It's up to you to write exactly what you hear. But something like a www dot, for me personally, I write 3 of them, and if I hear 2 and they slur, yeah, it's a www dot. I'll put 3 in. So, okay, any other comments or thoughts or questions? All right, thank you. Our last item is apply common proofreading marks and share these with your proofreader. This is a comprehensive list of proofreading marks. They're actually pretty official and pretty universal. So if you were talking to a professional book editor, you would probably find similar marks. And yes, there are a few that are repeated on purpose because there are 2 ways to say something. Okay? For example, on page 5, make a letter lowercase, make a letter lowercase. There are 2 ways to do that. You can write LC in the margin, which means lowercase, or you can put a slash through the letter, and that would also mean make it lowercase. Uppercase is 3 little lines under the letter, or the word cap. And the other one I want to bring to your attention is, I think it's a great one that it's good to know. On the right, 2/3 of the way down, where it says, let it stand if you accidentally cross something out. So and that happens to me a lot. I'll cross something out, and when I look at it and I think about it, I go, you know what? I didn't mean to cross that out. Darn, I wish I hadn't crossed that out. You just write STET, S-T-E-T. Did you all know that? Okay, good. So I'm giving you a little piece of information that will help. But you'll notice it says S-T-E-T, STET. And that's on the left there. I don't know exactly what it means, but it does mean, put it back. We're okay after all. Okay. And the rest, you're certainly welcome to review these at your leisure. And you don't need to use them all, but put in a few here and there, and at least you'll have good communication. All right. Are there any questions about that kind of proofreading? Okay, now let's go to page 6. Did you know that? And this is one of my most favorite pages. Okay? She ordered chili and sea bass. It should be Chilean sea bass. One in the same. It should be one and the same. You've got another thing coming. No, the expression is you've got another think coming. Okay? These are official expressions. Okay, you've got another think coming. How about this one? For all intensive purposes, it should be for all intents and purposes. But you see, pardon?
Would you stick that if they said intensive? Because I've had that a lot. and
Okay,
I thought
would I
about
sick,
sticking.
great question, would I sick intensive if they say intensive all the time? Yeah, for all intents and purposes. How do you know they said intensive? It's so slurred. For all intents and purposes. For all intents and purposes. For all intents and purposes. I mean, it's a slurry. And I would put in intense space and space purposes because it's vague.
But when they really
But,
pronounce
yeah,
if,
when they really-
and they have to intensive.
If they said for all intensive purposes, if they said it like that, I would give them verbatim with a sick. However, my experience of the way people don't talk like that. They don't talk clearly. They talk sort of.
I think a lot of people don't know that.
A lot of people don't know
Intents
that.
and purposes.
That's exactly why we're in this class today. A lot of people don't know that, and they say what they think it is, intensive, for all intensive purposes. So even if they don't know it, I'm going to create a transcript that's correct as much as possible. And again, judgment call, you get to call it how you've heard it. However, I feel that the sound is so similar for all intents and purposes. Was that intents and purposes? Or for all intents and purposes, was that intensive purposes? I think it's vague. I think they sound similar. So depending on how they would articulate it, I would say I would almost always put it correctly.
Well, what if they said, I have a specific question?
Oh, and that's in here. The word Pacific is in our handout. We talk about
Or
that.
nuclear.
And what do we do? I have a Pacific question. What do you do?
I always hear that, I always just hear it right. But
Reggie, what do you say?
I hear it the way it's supposed to sound, so I put it the way I know it to be, because that's the way I hear it.
So you write S-P-E-C-I-F-I-C, but you heard P-A-C-I-F-I-C. How many of you put the correct word when they say Pacific?
I think it
And you
depends.
put specific? I would say 80% of the people raise their hands. How many people would put P-A-C-I-F-I-C if they hear P-A-C-I-F-I-C?
I think there's a difference in hearing it and knowing what
Because
it's saying.
the way people pronounce words,
That's definitely.
it's like presentation and presentation. You know what it is.
Yes.
You just hear it and it's just
It's like presentation and presentation.
It's just pronunciation.
It's
But it's a different
pronunciation.
word. It's a completely different
But it's a
word.
different word, Pacific specific.
It's like act and ask.
It's like
It
act
really is. So I
and
don't
ask.
It's just pronunciation.
Does anybody put AKS or AX for the word ax?
No, because
No,
you're writing
we
it out.
all write
Yeah.
ASK. And it is regional. There are ebonics.
There's dialect.
Right.
And if you're gonna
Dialect, absolutely.
we're gonna start doing that with Middle Easterners and, Mexicans, and it's just gonna be ridiculous. You'll be writing like Huck Finn or something.
Yeah, it could get totally out of hand with people from Mexico, people from the Mideast or the Far East. Yes.
Although I took a lot of years of asbestos cases, so we had people from all over the country, and we had a lot of people from Alabama, and their regional kind of colloquialism was ever what. And you wouldn't say whatever. They'd say ever
Okay.
what. So I actually wrote ever what.
Okay, so let me repeat that. She did a lot of asbestos cases for years. Gee, you must be wealthy.
I wish that
She
were.
did a lot of cases, asbestos cases, and there were people from all over the world, but of course from all over the United States. And in Alabama, it's a normal phrase for them to say, ever what? Was that it?
Instead of
Ever what? Instead of whatever. Whatever. Of course, if you ask a teenager from the valley, anything, or if they're ever called on bad behavior, it's whatever. And you gotta roll your eyes.
Or in Texas,
But if they say ever what, now what you did was you wrote ever what. You wrote what you heard. You did not change it to whatever. Okay? So that's just another example. Folks, I cannot stress it enough. Use your common sense. Also, it's fantastic to have a buddy system, to work with somebody. I'm a life coach, and I do coaching with people. As a matter of fact, your little card even talks about getting a complimentary consultation, which I would be happy to offer you. And the thing is, well, where was I going with that? I lose my place.
The buddy system.
Buddy system.
The buddy system. Not everybody has a life coach. If you do, and if you need one, and then you get one, that's a fantastic thing. I highly recommend business coaches or life coaches, lots of types of coaches. Can you imagine somebody going to the Olympics and never had a coach? So they provide tremendous value in a person's life. But if you don't have a life coach or a regular coach for something, a real-time coach, of course there's that product called real-time coach, have a friend, have a buddy, share with your friend, have somebody you can bounce ideas off of. And this could create great value for you. All right. So again, it's common sense. I love seeing every individual empowered. You are smart, you have a good mind, and you have permission to do something that you feel is right, that you feel is intelligent. What? Teacher never said that in school. You don't get permission to use your brains. You gotta look up the rule. And we all know this one. There is no written rule for every situation that comes up. Okay. So for all intents and purposes, it should be intense and. I'm giving you leadway. It should be I'm giving you leeway. Okay. Ask a question, it should be ask a question. Memento. Are you getting a memento from your trip? It should be memento. M-E-M-E-N-T-O. Espresso. Boy, that good strong coffee in the morning. Do you ever order espresso? Folks, it's espresso. Espresso. He got off scotch-free. Well, it's scot-free and it's S-C-O-T, one T. So these are just little tidbits that are correct. This is actually my favorite page in the handout. The failure did not faze her. Folks, that word phase, there are 3 different spellings for phase, and it should be F-A-Z-E. Okay? The statute.
What's the third spelling?
Pardon me?
What's the third spelling of phase?
Well, there's phase, P-H-A-S-E, phase, F-A-Z-E, and phase, F-A-C-E, F-A-C-E, phase. Didn't have the Z sound exactly, but yeah. All right, and the statute of limitations. We know that. We're cool. We're smart because we've had a legal background. But some people say the statute of limitations instead of the statute of limitations. And a scapegoat. A scapegoat. What if you're a court reporter and you're not familiar with the phrase and you hear, yeah, he was a scapegoat. What? He was a scapegoat. Oh, the goat escaped. Okay. And jibe with, it should be jibe with. In jibe with something, It means to indicate you are cool with it, or you can get down with it. It's similar to jibe with. Interesting to know there are two different words. Bated breath, it should be B-A-T-E-D, with bated breath. And without further ado, that word adieu is A-D-O. Do we ever write A-D-I-E-U? Hopefully not. If we do we have a great proofreader who knows how to correct that spelling? So these are just little things, but you could see how without this awareness it could be embarrassing in a transcript. Free rein, R-E-I-N. Okay, the kind of a rein for a horse, right? Rein the horse in. Hunger pains should be hunger pains. Okay, do you have hunger pains? Do you have hunger pains? Step foot, it should be set foot. Just kind of an interesting little phrase there. It's a mute point. Well, I don't know what's wrong with M-U-T-E. Sounds good to me. No, it is a moot point, M-O-O-T point. All right. And case and point should be case in point. Another one of those in or and type phrases that are not really articulated well, but it's great for us to know the correct phrase, case in point. Okay, the spitting image should be the spit and image.
You never heard that?
I've never heard that one either.
Yeah. Well, I've only heard spitting. I thought I've only heard spitting image. However, if you hear spitting without it being pronounced that way, what about being a super sharp court reporter and spelling it correctly? The spit and image. The spit and image. Yeah, the spit and image of this little kid. Okay. She will try drugs irregardless of her upbringing. Now we hear irregardless, don't we? How about conversate? Don't we hear conversate often? And it's not a word, but we write it because we hear it. And we write irregardless, even though there's no such word. And soon afterward, I will go, actually, I just threw this in there. Afterward and afterwards are both correct. They are both correct. Are there any questions? Can anybody think of anything to add to the list? Yes.
I'm finna. A lot of people say I'm finna go.
Fixing to go.
Yeah, but it's fixing to go.
Fixing
And what do they say?
Finna.
F-I-M?
F-I-N-A. Finna.
Okay, I'm finna go. As if I'm fixing to go. I'm fixin' to go, which would be F-I-X-I-N apostrophe. I'm fixin' to go. But they say I'm finna go. Like that. Welcome to English. So what do you do in a transcript if that happens?
I like fixing.
You write fixing. F-I-X-I-N-G? Okay, everybody? If they say I'm finna go, you'd write F-I-X-I-G. I'm fixing to go. What was that?
I work in civil, they don't talk like that.
Oh, he works in civil, they don't talk like that.
When criminal, they do. I hear everything.
I'm gonna and going to.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah.
All right, great phrase. Thank you for that. Any others? All right, I have, pardon me?
Them and them. I asked him one day, what did I ask you? No, when they said, what is it?
Another's a word.
Another?
Hooking them.
Pookie now? Yes, how do you say that?
Pookie
I mean, Pookie and them.
Pookie and them?
Just hooking them.
Pookie them.
Oh, Pookie them. It's Pookie and them.
Hooking and them. There's somebody.
Okay, so they slur that little out.
And then I.
Okay, great. Folks, that brings us to our first break, I hope. Is my timing right? Or am I supposed to go till 10 o'clock? Total 10? I think we are supposed to go a little further. I didn't mean to rush through this if I was supposed to give it more time. All right. What I would like to do is go back and talk about the 10 parts of the 10 parts of grammar that are listed on page 2. We did that quickly. I'd like to refer to these 10 items and discuss them a little further because they are very important. And if there is a run-on sentence, that shows up in print. And you do not create a run-on sentence with a comma. Well, actually, I'm sorry, you do create a run-on sentence with a comma, which is absolutely incorrect. You either want a period or a semicolon or a connecting word. So a run-on sentence is 2 complete sentences, often separated with a comma instead of a semicolon or a conjunction, or without any punctuation. I saw the people, they were all dressed up. Perfect example of a run-on sentence. And we definitely want that to be 2 separate sentences. There is nothing wrong with short sentences. They're easy to read. So we should be creating short sentences. And as a quick review for conjunctions, words like and, however, or, but, neither, nor, so, and for. Okay. She had an accident, comma, so they went to the hospital. That could be 2 complete clauses, 2 complete sentences that are combined with a conjunction like so. Yes?
I was taught that however is a transitional clause, not a conjunction.
Okay, you're saying that however is a transitional clause and it's not a conjunction. And if I had my book, actually I've got a computer. This handout was prepared with information on the internet, from Google, and from Margie Wakeman-Wells' book. And I will tell you that I personally had a very minor disagreement or 2 with Margie's newest take on things. And I had a few disagreements with Lillian Morrison's view. So anyway, the research was done on the internet. You might be absolutely right. However, is a transitional word. It was listed as a conjunction. Was it correct on the list that I saw in creating the handout? I can't answer for sure. There was a source for that. It was nothing that I personally made up. So you certainly brought out a great point, and it's certainly worth thinking about. And I also know that in an advanced college class in English that my ex-husband was in, he was taught that you can do a comma in front of however. I'm a however lady today.
If it's not complete.
It is 100% correct to do semicolon, however, comma. And so for me personally, ever since I had learned that from him, I've always done semicolon, however, comma. So thank you.
Especially if it's a complete thought afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not saying a sentence like, I will design the dress however I feel like it. I'm not talking like that. I'm talking about 2 complete thoughts, although that was a complete thought. You know, that was a subject and a verb. Anyway, the general idea is, I think you brought out a great point. And I don't know if a transitional word can be also used as a conjunction or not. So I couldn't answer that for sure. However, I do know for a fact that semicolon, however, comma is acceptable.
It's kind of like therefore.
Right.
Like therefore. Yes.
Have you noticed a little bit trendy thing is to start a sentence with the word so?
Okay, beautiful question. I love it. Thank you. Your name is?
Tina.
Tina. Thank you, Tina. Okay. There I go with my okay, right?
Okay, fine.
Tina said, what about the trend of starting a sentence with the word so? I don't know about you, but I see it all the time. It is very high frequency. And what do we do when we hear so at the beginning of a sentence?
It depends.
It
There's
depends.
There's a lot of debate about that. Since it is a conjunction, there's a school of thought that says you never put a comma behind the conjunction. I was taught that so is a non-essential element of the sentence, so it is to be separated by a comma.
Okay, so Reggie was taught that so is not an essential
Element of a sentence.
element of a
If
sentence.
you remove it, the sentence remains the same.
If you remove it, the sentence is the same. So therefore, you do or do not put the
You
comma.
do.
You put a comma because it's a non-essential element of a sentence. Okay?
Yes, and it actually can change the meaning of the sentence if you don't put the comma.
And it could change the meaning of a sentence if you don't put the
Because
comma.
it can be so do you or comma so, comma do you.
Okay, like, so do you, yeah, so do you, or so comma do you think, etc. All right, yes.
The grammar rule, and I looked this up recently because my proofreader was doing it a different way, but I'd always remembered that the only way you put comma after so is if there's an adverbial clause.
Okay.
Or a clause that comes right after it. Otherwise, there would not be a comma. And that, I looked up the rule, and that's what it says.
Okay, all
So,
right.
for instance, so in the interim, did you go blah, blah, blah? So in that instance, you would put so, comma, in the interim, comma, did you go to the store?
All right, excellent. So let me repeat that. She looked it up. And
it was
her
hard to
reference
find.
that she looked it up in said,
It said comma is only after so if there is a clause after so, like an adverbial
there is a comma
clause.
after so only if there is a clause after so.
And there's an exception, because if it's a direct address, if they say so Mr. Smith, comma.
And there's an
Right.
exception, it's called so Mr. Smith, comma. But Mr. Smith is not a
It was so
clause.
comma Mr. Smith,
But
because it's a direct address, and anytime you direct
Exactly.
address somebody, you must put the comma before their
When
name.
you direct address somebody, you would put a comma like, so Mr. Smith, why did you kill that lady? And it would be so. Look at what we really care about. Okay, so it would be so comma Mr. Smith. You do put a comma
On direct address.
on direct address.
Or a clause.
Now, and of course, when there is a clause following it. Did I say that
Adverbial
right?
clause.
Right.
An adverbial clause.
Yes.
All right, so if there's so and then an adverbial clause, it gets a comma. If not, then there's no comma.
Right.
Yes.
It seems like it comes up a lot when the person is using the word so because they're gathering the rest of what they're going to say.
Okay.
And I feel like in the instances I keep hearing it, they'll say, so I really feel like, or so you are asking that question. I still want to put a comma, I just don't.
Okay, so the word so is sometimes used as a filler. Like the person is thinking what they're going to say next, like a thought process. If they say, so give me that example again, that was a good one.
So I really like your question.
All right, so I really like your question. Are you saying that should not get a comma?
No, I like the comma, but I'm
You
wondering-
like the comma,
You're right, because.
but you don't know the real rule, you just like it.
There's no phrase after it, there's no.
And so it's not an essential element of the
Yeah.
sentence, so it doesn't need to be there.
Okay, the comma does not need to be there because so is not a major essential element of the sentence.
No, the comma.
So I like what your attitude is. Is that the idea? And then technically you don't put a comma. So I like what your attitude is. That would not require a comma because it does not have the adverbial clause following it. Is that
I'll put a
correct?
comma.
Or a
I'll put
direct
comma
address.
because it's not
Did I
essential.
say that right?
Yes.
All right, however, your name is?
Oh, me, Tina.
Huh?
Tina?
Tina. Oh, it's still Tina.
Still.
Okay. Tina has not changed her name in the last 4 minutes. All right. So Tina says she likes the comma there. And folks, you are absolutely welcome to research this, to do it right. And I love it. If you research, that means you care and you are building your knowledge of fantastic grammar and English, and I love that. I love it. And if it doesn't take too much time, it's a wonderful thing to do. If it's going to take you an hour and a half, or your computer's not working and you're going to drive to the library to go look it up. Of course, with today, we have so much that's instant. We've got, for example, we've got Searchmaster, which I think is one of the most fabulous programs ever written, other than CAP for our court reporters. And there is so much research that can be done in an instant. And this particular program, you can research in an instant and never define a word twice, never have to look up anything twice, never have to check a spelling twice when you use Searchmaster. But that's another topic. But getting back to our so and then the comma, great. Look it up, review the rules, research it, do it correctly. And if you don't, if you are the type of person who does write SO comma and there is no adverbial phrase following or discussing the essential element of the sentence, if that's the most horrible thing you do, you put the comma after so, you've got my opinion that you're a wonderful person. Still.
Sometimes you just have to ask your question, is there an attorney on planet Earth that knows what should be done?
Exactly.
And who cares? At some point, you just don't care.
Okay, so you just said you might ask an attorney if he's on planet Earth. Repeat what you said.
Well, sometimes, after I've spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how to do something, I'll think, is there even an attorney alive on planet Earth that knows how this should be done?
Okay, great. She says she'll try to look up something, get the right answer, research it, maybe 15 minutes later. Is there an attorney on planet Earth who really knows the right answer? And I love that line because I use it in many other things, and I'll share with you when I use that line too. And the truth is, if people don't know which is correct, why are you spending a lot of time researching it? It's fine to research to a degree, but perfectionists overdo it. And if you are a perfectionist, you're hard to live with. So that's what okay, yes.
There could be an issue of consistency as well. Like if you're going to use so and it's not an essential element, as you spoke earlier, but you feel that and you comment, as long as you do that throughout the whole document or transcript, and you're consistent.
All right, another great point. If you're going to write so, comma, and then there is no essential clause following it, or the adverbial clause following it, but if it's in the transcript and there are other times when you do put the comma, what about using so, comma all the time and it's consistent? And it could possibly be argued that that consistency is not accurate if it doesn't belong in some places. However, the person reading your transcript, in my opinion, I believe transcripts should be readable. And if you have so at the beginning of a sentence and it flows and it makes it easy to read, in my personal opinion, you can put the comma, even without the perfect rules. And I love your idea of consistency.
And
it's what we're used to.
person tells them how to read it. If you have the comma there, they know. So, pause, and then go on. If you don't have the comma, they know it's a fluid.
Yes.
We're telling them how to read it at the beginning.
It's telling somebody how to read something when you do put a comma, it's a pause. So, what did you do next, or whatever. And also, it's one of those throwaway phrases, or words, I should say, that don't really have a lot of meaning. There's another word like that, and it's the word like. Let's talk about that. But you were going to say something.
I was going to comment using so. I've had this happen a lot recently. Some people are in the habit of saying, they'll trail off their sentence with so, and so what do people do with that?
Okay, all right, wait, please, let me get this for the record. If a person trails off their sentence, and they end it with a so as a keep going in your thoughts, but no more words come out. Did I say that correctly? what do you do?
Ellipsis.
Now, Reggie, you tell us the answer to that.
Ellipsis.
Ellipsis.
Is faltering speech. It connotes
Altering speech.
faltering speech. Faltering.
Faltering. Oh, it's faltering speech. Reggie, you're going to teach the rest of this class. Okay, so he would use ellipses. How many of you use ellipses? How many of you don't use ellipses? How many of you refuse to answer my question? Let's try it again. How many of you use ellipses? I don't mean in that one sentence, I mean just in general.
Like
You
ever
use
in our
ellipses
career?
whenever you feel like it.
Like ever in our career? I don't use it
Ever in your
regularly.
career.
They mean two separate things.
Okay. How many of you never use ellipses in your career? It's almost, what's about 60%
They teach you
do
not to, it's kind of like the
and
explanation.
40% don't. What's interesting is I'm from California, and in California, not only did we not learn ellipses, we don't even know how to spell it in California. So California reporters have never used ellipses. I find it a fascinating topic because here you've got the Californians who've never used ellipses in 30, 40, 50 years. My friend Pat Cunha has been reporting now 55 years. Okay, so some people have never used ellipses, but the people who do use ellipses are fanatics. They know the exact right place to put the ellipses. And when you are wrong, they know that too. And they will fight you to the death. But why is it 50% of the court reporters in the United States don't use ellipses? Isn't that interesting how we are? How whatever our English teachers taught us, we are true to the end.
What do the California people do when they say?
We put dashes. All we did was put dashes. And forgetting what's right, wrong, good, bad, what this means, what that doesn't mean. And I've heard it explained to me that if you use ellipses where it's appropriate, it means the person trailed off or
Exactly.
Right.
the quote, the middle of the quote, they trailed off. If you put dashes, it means you're a stupid court reporter who dropped. So that's how I
They're interrupted.
But anyway, yes, there are rules. Yes, ellipses are wonderful. And all I'm telling you folks is 50% of the people in your profession do not use ellipses. Go figure. Isn't that
It's
crazy?
kind of like the exclamation point, you got to do it because you're assuming that there's more there.
Okay, that's a great comment. It's like the exclamation point where you're assuming there's more there.
You're interjecting.
And also, weren't we all taught that you're not allowed to do an exclamation point because that would mean that you are what? You are interpreting.
No.
Are we allowed to interpret?
Yes.
I hear a yes. I see a lot of heads shaking no. How many of you say we are not allowed to interpret? How many of you say that?
But we do.
We have to.
Well,
We have to.
You have
But
to.
we
to some
do, we have
degree.
to, yes.
To me, the ellipses actually make it more clear, make the transcript
Okay.
more clear. And that's, I actually didn't use them probably the first 10, 15 years of my reporting career.
Okay.
But then the last half of my career, I'm just like, I think it clarifies. Because
Okay,
there are
so-
many times people don't get interrupted and they are trailing off. and
I
it's
hear
not-
you.
It's not
I
a
hear you.
complete
She
sentence.
feels that it makes, the ellipsis makes it clear. It shows that you're trailing off. For the first half of her career, she didn't use them. Now the second half, she is using them. She feels it's clearer, and I have one question to ask you. What does your end user know and interpret? You think it makes it clear? Is the paralegal reading this transcript? Is the appellate court reading this transcript
Yeah.
of
Yes.
the same
And then it
mindset?
gets published.
Now, Reggie says yes.
And those get published.
And it's published.
And
All
those
I'm
get-
telling you
how
is,
different it is. So they-
I'm giving you a little tiny drop of reality. 50% of us in the country don't use ellipses. I'm not saying that they're correct. I absolutely agree that there are reasons and rules and all of that. Ellipses are wonderful. And I've even learned a brief for the ellipses. I made it up, LPZ, okay?
I'll just say period.
He puts period. I'm not going to go there because we don't have a lot of time. However you want to write it, I really don't care. But, and of course, if you're doing it period, 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 all right, we're on the topic here. You put a space after each one or no spaces?
Space.
You do put a space.
It's
Oh.
unless it's spaces.
Okay, do you put a space?
Yes, unless it's
And your name is April. Okay, so here's the bottom line consensus of the truth. Reggie puts a space between each period. April does not put a space between each period. How many of you have been reprimanded for what you've done?
There's a reason, because there's a list with terminal punctuation, which actually is 4 periods.
That's right. If it's at the end of a sentence, you do 4 periods.
You're way too smart.
Well, that is correct. And we could
And that's why
elaborate on it. Folks, all of this is good stuff. I hope that, especially if I'm talking to one of you perfectionists out there, I'm hoping that I'm not going to encourage you to do more endless hours of research on this kind of stuff. Because, first of all, it's invisible. Second of all, nobody cares. And I only say that to you. I would never use that phrase to a new court reporting student. I taught court reporting from entry level, first day beginning, all the way through CSR prep and everything in between. And that was for 12 years at night school from the late 70s and the 80s. And I would never say these things to my court reporting students, but I'm talking to you as experienced, quality experts in the English language and as real court reporters. Every one of you, I think, is a Texas CSR. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Who isn't? Raise your hand high if you're not a Texas CSR. Okay, and for the video, what I'm talking about is we have California CSRs, we have Nevada CSRs, we've got Texas, we've got many states that have CSR requirements. Some of those CSR tests are very, very difficult. And I will tell you, Texas is very difficult. That's a given. And their English skills are already great. We have learned basic and advanced English skills. A lot of us who are CSRs, or if you're an RPR, you went to a great school, that's another wonderful qualification. And even if you're not, you've gone through court reporting school, and some people have had fantastic English classes, some not so great, and that's all okay. But what I'm saying is I treat everyone in this room as an English expert, with a person of great knowledge. Now we go from here to talking about these details. And that's what I mean by when I say, if you're going to spend endless hours researching for minutia and for things that somebody could disagree with. For example, what if somebody read your transcript, Reggie, and thought, oh my, he put a space between each period and that's wrong. Oh my goodness, my goodness. Well, and he goes on. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're right. It has to do with who's reading your transcript and really, what are we really talking about? This is just silly, that's all. I care more about you having more time with your children. Amen. Or cook a beautiful home-cooked meal with a drop less stress than you're up till 4:30 in the morning proofreading a transcript because you're doing this kind of extra research. Do you There's got to be a balance at some point. And that's what I'm talking about. Having said that, I love your comments and keep them coming. We don't want to stop you. And you also, and I love your input. All I'm saying is, do you understand what I'm saying? If you've done half of your transcripts without ellipses, and then you learned about them, and the other half have them, well, does this mean that these were horrible transcripts? Do you understand what I'm saying? We need a sense of balance of okayness with what we do. I do want to address, how much more time do we have here?
Well, we can finish up this part anytime you want.
Thank you. We won't tell them what we really do, will we? They'll find out. Okay. The word like is another interesting word. It is used all the time. If you are, 12 years old and up, from 12 to 22, I want to go to the store and buy some stuff and then I'll come home. Yeah, they just use the word like nonstop sometimes. So what do you do as a captioner? You put in the words that they say. And by the way, this came up at my last seminar, and there was a captioner who was troubled with this. There was a lot of strokes because do you put commas around like or do you not put commas around like? And we're not talking about I like you. That's not the like we're talking about. We're talking about what I would call a throwaway garbage word that means nothing.
Commas. It's just like, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like,
Did you see, Why Did I Get Married? Or Why Did I Get Married To? You saw. Oh, remember? You know what I'm saying? That meant he was lying every time he said it. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
Great word. Okay. Technically, I personally think it's absolutely correct. Every time somebody says like as a throwaway word, put commas around it, surround it with commas. And the captioner was saying, you know, there are times when they go so fast it's hard to put the commas in. So it was L-long-I-K for the word like. How about L-O-I-K for comma like comma? Or how about L-long-I-K with an asterisk for comma like comma? In other words, invent another single stroke. Not 2 or 3 strokes. A single stroke. Give it a new flavor, and that will be your comma like comma. And she loved that idea. That's the reason I'm mentioning it to you right now. And just as a thought process, anything that you do often, it is wonderful to create a shortcut. Maybe later today we'll talk about more shortcuts, okay? But for that word like, the last thought on this topic before we go to break is, does a person's voice go up at the end? This is another trait that young people do. I went to the store. I bought fruits, vegetables, and paper napkins. This is another way of talking, another maybe either regional or colloquial. I don't know if colloquialism is the right word for a sound. But this does happen, and if you hear that, do you put a question mark at the end of the sentence? The answer is no. Just make it a normal sentence if that's what you know the intent to be. They're not asking, did I go to the store? And I went to the store? Now, obviously, if they said, well, you went to the store and saw the murder, didn't you? Answer, I went to the store? That would be a question mark. I mean, use your common sense. But just in general, if the person's voice always... We actually discussed this online in a professional organization that I belong to, and we were talking about how that is not effective when a young lady is applying for a job or is looking to get a job and is on a job interview. Watch those words. Watch the words like and so and all of that, and watch the way your voice goes up at the end. It shows weakness, and it's not a great way for a woman or a young lady to behave in a corporate environment. So that was what that topic was about. Yes.
If we're about to adjourn, can I make one more ellipses comment?
Absolutely.
As to why I like it.
We're back on the ellipses.
I know. You can't get away. But because I've had it come up more than once in a transcript where the attorney's accused of interrupting the witness.
Yes.
And in that case, the ellipses is pretty critical.
Okay, so she said that sometimes the witness would interrupt the attorney. And the comment is, that's why it's pretty critical to have ellipses. I hear
you. The attorney was
you.
accused, like the opposing counsel would say, you keep interrupting the witness.
If the opposing counsel is saying that you're constantly interrupting the ellipses, now that's a great reason to show ellipses as opposed to dashes, to show the interruption. My question again is, and I know you cannot wrap your head around this, I get it. But here's my question. Does the person reading the transcript understand the use of your ellipses when 50% of the country, court reporters, don't use them?
Well, that's not my responsibility.
That, of course it's not. It's not your responsibility, and I agree with that. I just want to talk a little reality, the way it is. You can be 100,000,000,000% right, and you are right, I'm sure.
I'm to say
But and we want to be as correct as possible. All I'm saying is, we can continue on ellipses for a long time. There are some people who are never taught it, who don't use them. They've lived this long and never use them. They never will. Some people never will, and they just move on in life. But I hear you. Okay, folks, I think that brings us to the end of our first session. We're going to take a break. How long is our break going to be?
About 10 minutes.
10-minute break, and we'll be back for our second round.
And I can't believe you disrespected the word like, which is half my daughter's vocabulary. Well, there you go. You're done. How easy was that? I hope you had a great time taking this program. Now you have a few more CEUs to add to your CEU bucket there. Now remember, if you're taking one of our longer courses, please wait until you finish all the seminars before you send us your answers. And please try to, if you're going to put them in an email, copy them in one straight vertical line, separated by the different course titles. And that makes it easy for me to grade, makes it go a lot faster, and I don't make any mistakes. Well, not so much. Okay. And also, you can scan them in order and send them to me as well. Remember, we're always putting new content up here. Every year, we will have at least 4 to 10 more hours worth of CEUs that you can get here from the comfort of your home. So if you know more court reporters that would like to get their credits that way, please let them know about it. And remember, your home for CEUs online, Jeff Justice Seminars, where you can get your CEUs online anytime.